I'm Arnab Deb. I'm an assistant professor in the economics area at IMI New Delhi. Today I'm here to say something about Indian economy. Indian economy is very vast topic, so it's not possible to say everything about Indian economy, but I have listed down some issues which I think worth discussing here. But before getting into the main issues, I would like to be a little bit historical, because and as I want to be historical, first I have to go back to when the new government, this BJP government, came into the power. As I believe, and history proves it, there are historical evidence that whenever there is a big change in the government, in any economy, any country, that change has been followed by big change in the macroeconomic status of the economy. It could be in either direction, it could be in positive way, it could be in a negative way, but whenever there is a big change, yes, that has been followed by changes in the macroeconomic status of the economy. So yes, in 2014, when this BJP government came into the power, and there was a very positive sentiment in the economy among the investors, among the industry, among the common people, there is a very strong positive sentiment. And this government had some agenda which was long overdue for Indian economy. And one of the primary agenda of this government was to strengthen the manufacturing sector. I am starting with the government of the BJP governments coming into the power, but over the last almost 3 years, several issues, several things happened in this economy. And I should mention that in my opinion, the biggest incident, the most dramatic incident in the Indian economy happened in last 3 years was the demonetization. Today I am not here to discuss about the demonetization, because numerous people from industry, from academia, they have done the analysis, they have done the dissection, so it's very much redundant, I believe, to again analyze the demonetization issue. But given the agenda this government, this new government, stable government set in the beginning, this demonetization has a strong link to their agenda. So let me talk about their agenda, some road ahead, and how is it somehow linked to the biggest event of the country. I would say one of the biggest event in the history of Indian economy, this particular demonetization, which took place in 8 November 2016. As I was saying, that Indian economy is going through a big transition phase. In last 3 years, Indian economy is trying to revamp its manufacturing sector. Why manufacturing sector? The answer is very simple, because this manufacturing sector is a sector where the most of the employment gets generated. And historically, it is true that over the post-reform years, we shifted from agricultural sector to the service sector. There is a saying that Indian economy missed the bus. Is it deliberate or is it a mistake? That opens a different debate. I am not getting into that thing. But yes, we shifted from agricultural sector to service sector, and somehow the manufacturing sector was not taken proper care. So now the agenda is to boost the manufacturing sector, and as I said, that it absorbs the surplus labor of the agricultural sector. One of the prominent feature of any emerging economies is that it contains surplus labor, and Indian economy is not any exception. Now the big question is, and this is my first issue which I want to discuss little bit here with some points, that okay, we are developing manufacturing sector, we are strengthening the manufacturing base like China did, but are the surplus labor which are supposed to be absorbed in the manufacturing sector, are they ready to be absorbed in manufacturing sector? In other words, do they have the right skill to be absorbed in the manufacturing sector? My answer is here, no. In my opinion, no. The surplus labor we are trying to absorb in the manufacturing sector, they are not ready to be absorbed, at least in terms of skill, in the manufacturing sector. To support the statement I just made, that Indian surplus labor are not ready to be absorbed in the manufacturing sector because they are not skilled yet, let me give you some data that only 2% of Indian population, Indian working population have some formal training. Now, if you compare this number with the number in some developed countries like US, UK, we see that India is lagging. So, in order to overcome this problem, in order to impart skills into the workforce, into the working population, several schemes have been undertaken in last 2-3 years. But to what extent these schemes could be successful, that is a big question mark. So, there are some caveats, there are some problems which I would like to mention one by one. So, number one, if we look at the last union budget, we see that there are 17,273 crore rupees has been allotted for these different schemes. But if you look into details, or if you dig deeper, you would find that this amount is not sufficient to make this scheme successful. I mean, also given the number of working population, the per capita expenditure is very less. So, that is a big problem that the government should go for some more allocation of fund for this particular, for these schemes. The second point is that whenever you are imparting skill, whenever you are making the working population more skilled, following the classical theory of microeconomics, then you have to increase your wage as well. But currently the wage structure has not been revised in that way, so that whenever you are getting a skilled workers, there could be a big mismatch between the wage and the skill the workers are offering, and that is actually very much detrimental for all these schemes, all the initiatives taken, because if you cannot give the appropriate wage to the skilled workers, then you cannot expect that the workers will give you the maximum productivity. So, that needs to be taken care of. The wage structure should be revised. The third point is again which is related to the labor laws. We know that the Indian labor laws are century old. I mean, there are very minor amendments so far. But at the same time, it is also very much linked to my previous point that the wage structure should be very much in tandem with the skill set. The worker rights, the rights to the skilled workers should be protected. There should not be any violation of the labor laws, or if there is some kind of clauses in the labor laws where the labor rights are not protected, that should be taken care of. The fourth point is that whether we are looking at the domestic demand while making the workforce more skilled, while running the skilling India schemes, that is another concern, and we should be very careful about it, because we have seen in last 2.5 decades over the post-reform years, a good number of workers, rural workers, have actually been migrated from rural sector to the urban sector with a hope that they would be absorbed in the formal sector, they would be absorbed in the industries. But actually, if we look at the data, if we look at the real picture, we can see that that never took place. If you look at any metro cities, if you look at the data in the metro cities or even in the tier 2 cities, you would see that in a formal setup, along with the formal setup, there are several informal pockets which are inexistent, and those informal pockets are actually causing some development issues. So, what could be the reason for it? The reason is that maybe the rural sector, I am imparting the skill into the workforce in a rural sector or in some suburb, but what is happening, that particular small city or small town does not have the potential to generate employment. So, the worker, the surplus labor, the surplus worker, they are getting the skill set, but they have no place to be employed. So, a big migration is taking place from the rural sector to the urban sector, and that may create a problem because you are skilled, but you are not getting a job. So, ultimately the scheme could not be that successful the way it is supposed to be. Last point in this Skill India issue is that while imparting skill in the surplus labor force or the agricultural labor force, excess labor force who are going to be absorbed in the manufacturing sector, we should not ignore the agricultural workforce as well. It is true that we are trying to strengthen the manufacturing base, that is fine, but the important part is that agricultural sector is still the primary sector in our economy. And not only that, this agricultural sector is actually ensuring the food security in the country. Now, if you look at the agricultural sector, you would find that the productivity in the agricultural sector is showing a downward trend. Is it not? It is not because of the surplus labor there, it is also because of the lack of skills the present agricultural workers having in the sector. So, along with skilling the workforce who are going to be absorbed in the manufacturing sector, the agricultural sector workforce should also be skilled so that the food security problem never comes up. So, where I started that yes, Indian manufacturing sector, we are trying to strengthen the Indian manufacturing sector. At the same time, to boost the Indian manufacturing sector, we need to impart skill into the workforce. But as I mentioned that skilling India is not an easy task for the present government or for the policy makers. There are several caveats which needs to be looked at, otherwise the whole objective of strengthening the manufacturing sector and get dividend out of it would be unsuccessful.